Well, hello, and welcome to the Holmes Cinema Clues, Masks, Mirrors, and Media, a show where film, television, and theater become a lens for understanding neurodiversity. Here, we go beyond the screen to explore the characters who mask, mirror, and struggle to belong, often hiding in plain sight. Join our hosts Dan and Dr. Stephanie Holmes as we invite you to step into the role of cinema detective to examine how autism, ADHD, and other neurodivergent experiences are portrayed in the media. This isn't therapy. It's not diagnosis. Rather, it's thoughtful conversation mixed with cultural analysis for a deeper look inside the stories that shape how we see ourselves as well as one another. So, settle in, sharpen your lens, and get ready to follow the clues with your hosts, Dan and Dr. Stephanie Holmes. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Welcome back to Home Cinema Clues, where we investigate neurodivergent evidence hiding in plain sight. I'm your cinema agent, Dr. Stephanie Holmes. And if you've been following us, you know we handle 4 types of cases: the coded character, the hiding in plain sight, the neurodivergent magnets, and cinema translator. And today I'm super excited. Our guest really needs no introduction, but today we'll be talking about the coded character because we'll be talking about movies and docuseries about her. And we'll also be talking about the cinema translator, how cinema and media can be used to help explain the lived autistic experience to those of us who don't have that insight. So I'm joining to the stage with me Dr. Temple Grandin.
Hi, it's great to be here today.
I am so happy that you're with me today, Dr. Temple, because your movie has been influential, which we'll talk about that in another segment. I'm amazed that I come across people in the autism field who still do not know your name or know who you are. So can we start a little bit with the era that you're born in? You were born in the 1940s, and that was quite a different era for autism and autism identification. So start us back with your early years and kind of what your family faced when we didn't know very much about the autism spectrum.
Well, I was born in 1947. And my mother realized something was wrong when I wasn't learning to speak and my behavior was not like the little girl next door. Now, the first doctor I went to was a neurologist, not a psychiatrist, a neurologist. And back then, most doctors even didn't know what autism was, even though Kanner's paper was published. A lot of doctors didn't know about it. They did an EEG on me. That was normal. They checked for deafness. And they just said I was brain damaged because they didn't know about autism. Fortunately, the neurologist referred me to an excellent little school that 2 teachers just taught out of their home in their little housing development house. And they did it in their basement. And they were excellent teachers. So I got excellent early intervention. And then at age 5, I went into a small normal school where my mother and the teachers worked together as a team with very consistent rules in both places. That worked out really well. And then fortunately, I got through elementary school without being bullied, because the teacher explained to the other children that I had a disability that was not visible, like a wheelchair. High school was a nightmare. Bullying, teasing, worst part of my life. Absolutely the worst part of my life. But I was lucky to get into the early intervention, and then my more formal diagnosis came a few years later. But you got to remember the era that I was born in. 1947 was when I was born. And there just wasn't much known about autism back then. But I mean, the symptoms I had, the classic autism.
So in the 40s, were you also, if I remember the movie and docuseries, you were non-speaking, but they thought you were nonverbal?
Yes, yeah, I did not talk. And I can remember the frustration of not being able to talk. And then I think, well, maybe I'm going to just scream now, because I don't have any other way to communicate. It was very, very frustrating not being able to talk. And by the time I was 4, I could talk. And 5, I was slow to respond. And I remember a very frustrating situation where we had a little assignment in kindergarten where you had to mark the pictures with the B as in beautiful. And so I marked the suitcase as a bag, because in our house there were bags that went in the baggage car. And they didn't give me time to explain that. And that was very, very frustrating, because I did understand the B concept. I'll never forget that.
And so without that language, so you had language, but then without the ability to process, that caused dysregulation or frustration.
I'd be slow to respond. and I marked the suitcase down for beef a bag, and they just marked it wrong, and they didn't give me an opportunity to explain that in our house those were called bags.
The child is clearly autistic.
Autistic. I'm not
She's an
familiar.
infantile schizophrenic. We generally recommend an institution.
Oh, for how long? I wouldn't want to miss her first words.
She probably will never speak, and I'm afraid there is no course of treatment. I'm talking about institutionalization.
Doctor advised my mother to give up on me, but she refused to do so.
Og. Temple. Dog.
Mom. Me.
In the era you were born in, there was also the age of institutionalization. And so if I remember from reading about you, your mom kind of had to fight for you as well. Because in that era, it's like if something was wrong or different, it was like just institutionalize
Well,
this
normally
child.
kids with my kind of problems would be institutionalized. Now, fortunately, mother didn't get all that Bedelheim refrigerator mother crap, because that came 10 years later. So the first 10 years of my life, she wasn't exposed to that. Thank goodness.
Right. Many of us are still being called that. Here we are in 2020s, and there's still people who believe in the refrigerator mother concept for
No.
autism, which
No,
has been
autism,
debunked.
It's genetic.
It's genetic. I'm with you. All right. So you got the help that you needed despite the not having the label yet of autism. So
Yeah.
you're now in high school. So we're in the 60s. It's the 60s that you get your official autism diagnosis.
Oh, I definitely got it in the 50s. Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely did. Then the doctor said, well, it's autism. And, then real formal testing came a lot later, but I had all the classic symptoms. If I'd been born today, definitely would have been labeled autistic. You've got to remember, diagnosis is a behavioral profile. It is not specific, like a diagnosis for tuberculosis or for polio or for COVID. Those are hard diagnoses for viruses, bacteria. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that over the years, the autism diagnosis has changed. They keep changing the DSM. You've got doctors renting little conference rooms at Hyatt's and discussing whether or not to change things. In the 80s, when the diagnosis started to get formalized, you had to have speech delay to be labeled autistic. Yep, and I definitely had that. Then in the early 90s, you got Asperger's. It's basically no speech delay, socially awkward autistic. Then in 2013, they merged it all together. So now you've got, you've really broadened the spectrum. You see, they changed it. A diagnosis of tuberculosis is tuberculosis, period. That has not changed. It's a behavioral profile. Another thing is a true continuous trait. When is geeks and nerds get labeled autistic? There's no dividing line. And then you're going all the way from Einstein, people like Einstein and Bill Gates, to people with very severe problems, non-speaking. They have epilepsy and other neurological issues on top of autism, and require, real high support needs.
Yeah, part of you give a lot of credit to your mom, and you even wrote a book called The Loving Push of this space of needing to help the autistic child kind of broaden their horizons and broaden their skill sets, but don't exasperate them and don't push them into situations they're not ready for, but find that loving push in small increments. Will you talk a little bit about that to parents who are watching? Because I know you don't like coddling also.
Well, there's a tendency to overprotect these kids. I'm seeing too many smart honor students, teenagers, who've never gone shopping. Now, that was stuff I was doing at a very, very young age. And then when I finally went to special school, every week we went on a little shopping expedition to do our laundry in the coin laundry. And we had tiny bits of money in an account. And I had to spend that really wisely. And I only get, it was a very small amount of money. But that taught saving, really important. And what you have to do is you have to stretch just outside the comfort zone and give choices. When the opportunity came up for me to go to my aunt's ranch when I was 15, I was afraid to go. Mother gave me a choice. You're going to go. But when you get out there, and this involved an airplane ride, and I had been on a plane before, I could stay for a few days, a week, come home, or I could stay all summer. That was the choice. Always some choice. I loved it. I stayed out there all summer. And that's how I ended up in the cattle industry. If I hadn't gone on that trip to the ranch, I would not be in the cattle industry. And this brings up another really important thing. We need to get kids out doing a lot of different things. And then, of course, autistics tend to get fixated on things, but you want to take those fixations and broaden them. Kid likes cars. Let's read about the car industry. Let's do mathematics with cars. Tap into that interest and broaden it. Well, I had a very good sense of just how much to push me. That's why I did this book, The Loving Push. You don't throw them into the deep end of the pool. We don't shove them into a job that's chaotic multitasking. What I call chaos jobs. Those don't work. Super crazy busy, take out window. Don't go there. But on the other hand, I'm seeing too many situations where the parent's doing everything for the kid. We're putting too much emphasis on the academics and not enough emphasis on the life skills and learning how to get a job. I'm seeing students graduating from college with honors not make it in the workplace because they've never done any work skills until after college. That's not going to work. Gradual transitions always work better. Mother got me a little sewing job when I was 13. And it was just 2 afternoons a week in the summer. The lady worked out of her home, and I took apart garments and hemmed them. Loved it. Mother just set it up in the neighborhood, learning work skills. And then I went away to special school. They put me to work taking care of the horse barn and cleaning 9 stalls every day. And I learned how to work. It's not the same skills as academics.
Absolutely. And so that's a great point in our conversation to bring up. To hear more about this, today's show is sponsored by Empowering Autistic Voices in Education, where Dr. Grandin wrote the foreword and wrote a Q&A section for a robust transition plan for our autistic students. Starts in middle school by introducing them to different trades, different interests, seeing where the interest and the giftings lie, and really having a robust transition beyond school for the meaningful work. And so that is in Empowering Autistic Voices forward by Dr. Temple Grandin. So let's segue into what the meat of our show is about, so to speak, autism in the media. And so since the 40s to 2026, there's been different views of autistic characters, whether they're coded autistic, like Rain Man, or characters that are maybe a little quirky, like Big Bang Theory, that maybe we think Sheldon's on the spectrum, maybe not, but this show doesn't bring it out. So I want to kind of start that conversation with you. What have you seen? What do you remember? What's important for us to talk about autism and its representation in the media over these 80 years of your life?
Of course, the first representation was Rain Man. And now not everybody's a savant like Rain Man. Now, I had a little bit of involvement in that movie. I had lunch with Dustin Hoffman. And what I explained to him is what it was like to have the sensory problems and constant anxiety all the time. I said, Dustin, just imagine the nerves you had on your first really big audition. Now just imagine if that's how you felt all the time. And then he used Joe Sullivan, an autistic, Bruce Sullivan's son, sort of what autism looks like. And I told him what autism felt like. And that was the first, movie where it was really, really shown. And it's very clear now, not every autistic's like Rain Man. That would be a mistake.
Names, yes. Then who's playing first? Yes. I mean the fellow's name on first base. Who? The fellow playing first base for St. Louis. Who? What are you asking me for?
What is this? Why is he doing that?
Who's on first?
Whenever he gets nervous, he does who's on first. From Abbott and Costello?
Yeah, why?
Who's on first?
Why? It's his way of dealing with you touching things. His books and stuff.
First.
So he memorized who's on first.
First, yes.
Yeah, that among other things.
Raymond. Ted Kluzewski.
Kozewski. Ted Kozewski. Big clue, first base.
He played for Cincinnati?
Of course, he was traded for Deke Bundy, 1957. Lifetime batting average, 298.
Great books. He reads,
big
huh?
clue.
Reads and remembers whatever he gets his hands on.
Vern, beat yard. And of course, these people are going to be here all day, Vern. This is an unannounced visit, Vern. This is definitely not a weekend visit, Vern.
He's getting anxious. It's okay, Ray.
Vern. This is an unannounced visit, Vern.
Put it back. He said not to touch the books.
Not to touch books.
You like Shakespeare, Ray?
I don't know.
Did you read all this?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Vern.
You read Macbeth?
I don't know, Vern.
You read Hamlet?
I don't know, Vern.
Read The Twelfth Night?
Stop it.
Yes.
Yes.
You read all these stories that are in this book, and you don't know if you read the book.
I don't know, get your in.
You don't know.
Maybe you better put it back.
You don't know. Okay, no, Ray, take it easy. I'm not gonna... I won't touch anything else, Ray. We're not gonna take the plane. He's okay. We're not gonna take the plane. Just relax. He was upset. We were gonna take the plane. We're not gonna take the plane now. We're not gonna take the plane, Ray. We're not gonna fly, okay?
No flying.
We're not gonna fly.
No flying.
You tire me, Ray.
Yeah.
So there are many in the autism community who really dislike Rain Man. So there's all these controversies. Some autistic people say only autistic people should play an autistic character. Some criticize Rain Man because it pigeonholed autism to this one specific part of the spectrum. So what were your thoughts about it? You got to be kind of a consultant to it. What was your thought about the movie, how Dustin Hoffman portrayed autism in the character of Raymond?
I think he played it really, really well. And, it brought a lot of awareness. It was the first movie. And everyone knows now that, not everybody's a savant. I am not a savant. I'm a visual thinker. Do I remember every hotel room I stayed in? No, I don't. I only remember really weird and really dirty. Good hotel rooms are not remembered. It's like the old Holiday Inn advertisement. No surprises.
There you go.
But things that interest me, my memory's kind of like little phone pictures. But I want to make it very clear that not everybody who's autistic is a visual thinker like me. When I wrote Thinking in Pictures originally, I made that mistake. Now it's known. You have the mathematical thinkers, discuss this in detail in my book, Visual Thinking. You have visual thinkers like me that have a terrible time with algebra, but we can be really good at mechanical things, photography, animals, and art. Then you have your pattern thinker, your mathematical thinker, and then you have your word thinker. And I'm very concerned right now that my kind of mind, the picture thinker, is getting screened out, and you need us. Veterinarians, medical doctors right now got awful clinical skills because clinical skills are sensory-based visual thinking. And they're screening out a lot of people who need. I worked with mechanics that built equipment for me that owned big shops, and they were definitely on the autism spectrum, undiagnosed. Big shops. You should see their patent portfolio, and it's all mechanical stuff.
Yeah, I think you in visual thinking and the way I see it and others of your works, just broadening that while autism is a neurology, it's your operating system. No matter what your neuro profile is, neurotypical or neurodivergent, we all have a way we kind of think or process visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Some people have to touch it and turn it over and manipulate it and look at it in, 3D. And so sometimes people conflate those things, that one's processing system is the same as their neurology, but we all process the world in different ways.
Well, I worked with people that were very definitely undiagnosed autistics, owning big metal fabrication businesses, or they'd be the guy in the shop. He used to be called the weird guy in the shop, but he could fix anything, fix absolutely anything. And they had skills that people appreciated. And one of the things that's given my life richness is having an interesting career. And I want to help people get into good careers they're really gonna like. And learning work skills is important. So it's a slow transition from work to school. Many, many grandparents come up to me and they discover that they're autistic when their kids get diagnosed, and then they'll get diagnosed. But most of those grandparents all had jobs because they had paper routes when they were little kids. Now I realize paper routes are gone, but I suggest to parents, let's do some paper route substitutes. You walk Mr. Jones's dog. You do a volunteer job at a house of worship or at a community center where you're doing something on a schedule for somebody that's not the parents. Learning work skills, the instant they get legal, getting jobs. So there's a gradual transition into the world of work. and you're doing at the same time that you're also getting your education. But what you don't want to do, and I've seen this, and I've been seeing a lot of problems with this recently, is here's brilliant honors student, it ends up in the bedroom playing video games because they never did a work skill. Now, my mother was concerned that when I went away to the boarding school that I wasn't doing academics. And Mr. Patey said, let her get through her adolescence. She'll make up the academics later, which for mostly I did. But I learned how to work. And I have a paper, it's free access paper. It's titled How Horses Help the Teenager with Autism Make Friends and Learn How to Work. And the one place I did have friends was riding horses. You know, that's a shared interest. I had friends, we rode horses together. Friends who shared interests. There was also a model rocket club. And that's another place where I had friends.
Yeah, I remember I heard you kind of make, I'm going to call it a hypothesis, that when the public school system really shifted, because there used to be shop and carpentry and things of like that, you said that's where kind of quote the old autistics were able to get into meaningful work. And you feel like there's an issue with trade schools. We're losing some trades because of that, because we're forcing really high kids, smart kids into college, but maybe a trade would be suited because of how they process and
for the
all of that.
I'm not going to say that every autistic is suitable for trade.
Right.
The ones that would be most suitable are the visual thinkers. Okay. And let's not have algebra as a requirement for trade. Nobody in a trade uses algebra. But you have to do regular practical arithmetic, and not enough of that's getting taught. Taking out shop class in the elementary grades, worst thing we ever did. I took shop in 5th grade, and I absolutely loved it. And then you have your mathematical thinkers, and you have all your leaders out in Silicon Valley, people like Bill Gates, mathematical mind, your programmer mind. And a lot of those programmers and stuff out in Silicon Valley are on the autistic spectrum. Then your other third type of autistic mind is your word fact thinker. They'll know all the facts about their favorite football teams or something like this, or favorite types of movies. And the kind of jobs that they can be really good at is what I call specialized retail, where you work one at a time to help somebody get the right phone and the right phone plan, not the most expensive one, the right car, the right business insurance. There's a bank that's hired them to sell retirement investment products, where specialized knowledge of a product is really appreciated. Those jobs have been successful.
Yeah, so that reminds me, you are a part of so many projects, so maybe you don't remember, but I saw you also in a docuseries called Lost Potential, where you were interviewed about the underemployment and unemployment of autistic young adults and adults. And so as we kind of close out this section, and maybe I'll get a clip from that docuseries, where do you think there is lost potential? Because we both are concerned about autistic young adults and adults sitting in basements playing video games and not really following through on the potential that they have. What's this kind of, as we wrap up this segment, where do you see this lost potential? What can parents and educators do to tap into the potential of our young adults on the spectrum?
Well, they put in a lot of hands-on classes back into the schools. Also, there's been some very successful weaning off of video games, especially the visual thinkers, where you slowly introduce them to auto mechanics. And they switched over into that, and they found that motors are more interesting than video games. Now, video game design, AI is going to take it over. I've really got to look at the whole AI thing. Hands-on stuff, you get jobs doing all hands-on mechanical stuff, you've got a job. We need people that are going to keep big pumps working in the waterworks. You want that autistic person that loves that pump to take care of it, because you'd like to have water coming out of your taps in your town. That's where you're going to need, the autistic visual thinkers. And I'm very concerned about AI taking over a lot of illustration jobs. I got sent a book proof recently. The pictures had been done with very well prompted AI. They were beautiful. But if it's a hands-on job, like a nurse, that's not going to go away. We're still going to need school teachers. In fact, there was a big article in the New York Times about maybe we need to get rid of some of the computers in the elementary grades, because they're just watching a science experiment on YouTube rather than actually doing the science experiment. They need to be doing it. And I want to see autistics get out and get good jobs. And So what makes it successful? Let's have a slow transition from academics to the job, starting with the paper route substitutes, summer jobs as soon as you're legal. In college, let's work on career relevant internships, career relevant jobs and things that you do, helping professors out with research, because you don't want to just get to a bam, there's no work skills.
Absolutely.
That doesn't work, because when I spent 25 years in industrial construction, and I worked with a lot of people that were undiagnosed on the spectrum, and they had things they could build. We need these people. Now that's the visual segment. That's my segment. I'm very concerned about who's going to fix things. We got a big problem right now in industry. Who's going to fix factories? It's a problem. And who's going to fix big water pumps and make sure the pump that fills up the water tower is going to keep working? Now, then you have your mathematical minds, and I'm concerned right now about all the programming jobs being taken over by AI. They are not hiring entry-level programmers. They've had massive layoffs. This is not good. But the kind of job that won't go away is the local bank needs an IT person, the local school board, the local hospital. These places are all going to need IT people. Those jobs won't go away. And then you specialized retail. People appreciate somebody that helps them to get the right car, not some expensive car that's going to break their budget. The right car. That's specialized retail. Those jobs aren't going to go away.
Absolutely. Well, as we kind of wrap up this segment, we'll have Dr. Temple back to talk about maybe some of her favorite shows and the movies that were made about her. So for more information about robust transition, please get Empowering Autistic Voices in Education. Dr. Grandin has talked more about that, this robust transition that we want to see from school to meaningful work. And as we close this show today, we remind you it's not a crime to be different, and we hope that you find the clues to find uniquely you.
And I just want to mention the 2 books, Visual Thinking book right here, recommend that. And it has a lot of information about jobs. Also my book, The Autistic Brain, and The Loving Push, that's aimed at parents, because we've got to stretch. We don't throw them in the deep end of the pool. We got to stretch. Yes, and let's avoid the chaos jobs.
Absolutely. And all of these are usually found at Future Horizons, which publishes most of Dr. Temple Grandin's books. So join us again for our next segment with Dr. Temple.